Hi everybody. So what a great movie night we have tonight. We have an amazing movie. I think I showed it down here in Mexico one time, so it was recorded and put up onto Spreaker and put out on the internet, but it came to me very strongly today. As you all know, we've been kind of on a Jesus roll, a lot of amazing Jesus films, one after another, and from different angles. You know, from Clavius angle, the Roman guard angle, to Maria Magdalena. We've had all kinds of different angles, and tonight's angle will be from our mind. It's a mind-eye view. It's a let thine eye be single view that Jesus was talking about 2,000 years ago, to come to a place of peace of mind through a perspective that is available to us this very instant in mind. It's not a personal perspective, and it's not a perspective that comes through a personality. And having believed in a personality, we tend to watch movies from that personality perspective, which is kind of seeing the movie based on our own belief system of what we believe we are. So if we believe we're a person, then we tend to see a movie of people and the interactions between people. But tonight we have a chance, without using LSD, without using ayahuasca, without using San Pedro or any psychedelics, I'm going to take you on a trip that you won't soon forget. But this is no medicine involved. Jesus had this perspective, so for him, taking a walk on a sunny day and a body hanging on the cross were actually the same. And we've talked about that, you know, in the Christmas message, in the Course in Miracles. Jesus says, make this year different by making it all the same. It's a Christmas message because he's foreshadowing the new year. And we're getting close to that end of 2020. I hesitate to say end of the pandemic, but if you follow me tonight, it can be the end of the pandemic for you tonight. If you go into the mind with me, then you can actually transcend the pandemic by transcending all of linear time. And Jesus' message 2,000 years ago was so deep, but it wasn't necessarily so much received. When he said, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, the kingdom of heaven is very close, that usually just prompted more questions. Like, what are you talking about? You know, it's like there just was no idea of what he meant by the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Because everybody could see a hand was very close, but they did not understand this kingdom that was being spoken about, and it was a spiritual kingdom. But tonight's movie really is a big inroads toward that. And then, as far as the script of time and space goes, you know, 2,000 years pass, we have A Course in Miracles, and then at the end of the millennium, it's like, I think Jesus and the angels thought, oh, they're ready. Let's give it to them straight. So in 1998, 2 years before the end of the millennium, they made a beautiful movie down in Australia called Dark City. And Dark City, I remember the man who went to see it in the movie theater with me, he said, David, I've heard it's like A Course in Miracles made into a Hollywood motion picture. I said, that's fantastic. And we went and we sat in the theater. There was only us two, kind of more towards the back, and there was 2 or 3 people huddled in the front, and the people in the front of the theater looked like they were watching a Boris Karloff horror show. they were all kind of shaking and shuddering as they were watching Dark City, and my friend Mark and I were in the back. We were in seats next to each other doing high fives with our hands, just going, whoa, psh, another high five. And we go, whoa, another high five. It was one of the most spectacular metaphysical movies. Also one of the darkest spectacular metaphysical movies ever. People have, when I first would have friends come and meet me at the Peace House, like Lisa Fair and different ones, I would show them a cocktail of maybe 5 or 6 movies in a period of 2 days, and they would look at me with their eyes wired like, what have you just shown me? But Dark City was definitely one of them. So Dark City came in 1998. That's a virtual reality kind of movie with an escape hatch. Everything's upside down, needs to be turned back to the light, to be born again in the moment, in the light. And then in 1999, some of you remember there was a few interesting movies that came along, like The Matrix. The Matrix, there's another virtual reality movie. I don't know, some of you might have seen The 13th Floor. That was another kind of computer-generated virtual reality movie. And of course, The Truman Show. Wow, it's like the angels and Jesus must have said they're ready. Because all of a sudden, at the end of the millennium, we started getting flooded with these movies that basically, when you walk out of the theater, you're like, wow, what did I just see here? That was a major virtual reality movie. And of course, since then it has continued. And tonight's movie is called OTHERLIFE, because that's one of our themes. That was in the poll that came in third, feeling responsible for others. Well, there's no better way to escape the feeling responsible for others than to really have an experience that there are no others. That kind of pulls the tablecloth out on the ego. Because it's been using this others thing. People-pleasing is based on the belief of others. Feelings of being trapped, oftentimes, by others. Feeling indebted to others. Feeling at the mercy of others. Wishing that other people would behave and would act in a sane way. It comes up in partnerships, guilt around, I'm not doing enough for the others, I'm not fulfilling my responsibility for the others, I'm not doing enough for others. And so that came in third in the English poll, feeling responsibility for others. This movie is absolutely spectacular at taking the tablecloth out from under that one. Number 2, coming 2 in the English poll, was wanting to control. Has anybody here joining us tonight ever had a wish of wanting to control somebody, something, the world, behavior, even to control your own body? Oh, I wish that this body was more thin or more beautiful. I wish this body was more gentle and kind. It applies to so many things, but wanting to control something in the world is the presumption that there is something other than who you are that's there, that actually is there to be controlled, that there is a body there, that there is an environment there, that there is a house. I remember our ISO's walking around. He's still curled up over there, and Pauline is not. But he had a time where he was very feisty at our temple, and he would sneak up behind people, and we had chairs that had like a little space of like a couple inches right down at the base of the chair, and he would stick his claws through that little crack and squeeze it into people when he wanted to play and get attention. And then everybody would jump. And then there was some attempt at trying to control ISO after this happened a number of times. But wanting to control, that's like a central egoic tendency. Of course, the ego invented control, so then it projected a world where it wanted to project the belief into control. Controlling children, controlling the lawn. You mow the lawn. Why do you mow the lawn? Why do you mow the front yard and the backyard? You want to control the yard. Control with authority figures, control in relationships, control, you could basically say, over time and space. I mean, even the attempt to organize time into, seconds and minutes and hours and days and weeks and months and years and centuries and so on and so forth, it's almost an attempt to measure, to bring some kind of control and order into time. Imagine if Jesus appeared and he just said, now is all there is, well, there wouldn't be much of a need for measuring it. How do you measure now? How do you control now? You don't. It's so simple that it's beyond control, it's beyond manipulation, it's beyond measuring. And then coming up, number one in both poles, Spanish and English, is self-judgment and self-attack. Wow. That's what you voted for. 41 votes each. Self-judgment and self-attack. That's what you're really interested in this week. Survey says self-attack, self-judgment. And let's just go into that for a minute, because basically what I hear this morning, or actually today and this whole week, I've been talking to a friend, and the friend has been very curious and asking me a lot of questions about fear, because she's in fear and she's very, very curious of how to escape the fear. But the fear is very strong right now, so we've had some interesting discussions, and basically fear is an emotion that arises only from a belief that there is no fear in heaven, there is no fear in nirvana, but fear only can arise when there is a belief. And what is that belief? You could call it ego, you could call it separation, but I'm going to use a different word tonight. The belief in attack. If you believe attack is possible, then fear is an outcome, is a byproduct of the belief in attack. And so, what Jesus is telling us is that you must go so deeply into your mind to discover the impossibility of attack. Because as long as you believe attack is real, fear will seem real. And guilt will seem real, and anger will seem real, shame will seem real, loss will seem real, sacrifice will seem real, vulnerability will seem real. Everything that is fear, and a derivative, we'll say, of fear, all the other emotions, dark emotions, are all derivatives of the belief in attack. So it must be that if we are going to wake up to our true self and to reality, we have to have an experience of the impossibility of attack. Let me give you an example from A Course in Miracles. And this is the characters involved in bringing the Course to us all. There was a time where Helen Schuckman was receiving the Course, and she was in the middle of receiving it, and Ken Wapnick, who came along, I think this actually could have even been after the Course had come, but she had a lot of fear and anxiety and trepidation during the receiving of the material, but then this could be slightly after that, because Ken came on the scene to help join with Helen to help edit the Course. And there was a time when Ken decided he was going off into the mountains to visit some nuns that he had heard about and met. And so Ken takes the trip to go visit the nuns, and Helen Schuckman went into such fear. It was cold, it was snowy, and she became so fearful about thinking of Ken going to visit these nuns. She was very worried about him, and she went into a lot of fear. And at some point, she did turn to Jesus. And she said to Jesus something that most of us would consider a reasonable request. What Helen said to Jesus was, when she was feeling all this fear, was she said, "Jesus, take my fear away." Okay? That's the prayer. Take my fear away. But surprisingly, Jesus' answer was, "I can't do that." That was an interesting answer. Because what Jesus was saying is the correction of fear is your responsibility. Well, that is very interesting to hear from Jesus. The correction of fear is your responsibility. I cannot take your fear away. I can help you with instructions, and I can help you learn the conditions that you've set up that make this emotion of fear arise in your consciousness. I can help you. I can help you with the conditions. But the correction of fear is your responsibility. He basically said, if I would come and try to interfere between the thoughts you think and the consequences to those thoughts, I would be tampering with the most basic law of cause and effect. Basically, proving that you're helpless and you can't get out without me. Like, take my fear away. Almost like a child saying, make the pain go away. Mommy, Daddy, take it away, take it away. And of course, Mommy and Daddy can't always take the pain and the fear away. That's one of the frustrating things of parents on earth, is they get requests from their children and they go, yipes, how do I do that? So Jesus is clearly stating in the Course that the correction of fear is your responsibility. He does go on to say also that you're not responsible for the error, but you are responsible for accepting the correction for the error. And he gives us a little other clue where he says, do not attempt to project the error to time. Ooh, that's a good one. He's really telling us, he's showing us in the most direct way that this time-space mesmerism, this time-space conundrum, this whole cosmos of seeming challenges, hostility, difficulty, of duality, of multiplicity, he's basically saying, don't project the error to time. He even says in the workbook, salvation is among your thoughts. Find it. So I remember the first time I was doing the workbook lesson, I'm like, salvation is among your thoughts. Find it. Find it. Okay. The correction of fear is our responsibility, and we have to find it. But it must be there. So tonight, we are going to go on a holy journey together, because I'm going to show you yet another virtual reality movie. This movie will involve a little bit different twist on the virtual reality, that basically a computer program coding has been invented, and what happens is that the scientist, the lab technician, the inventor, they put the coding into you through your eyeball. They put drops. You've seen like Visine, little Visine drops. These are coding drops. They're going to put computer coding into your eyes in this movie, and then it generates a perceptual experience that is so real that it is indistinguishable from anything else that's perceived in the world. And so this is an interesting little twist on virtual reality. Why is this so important? It's because spiritual awakening just involves one simple recognition. And Jesus says it this way in the Course. He says, enlightenment is but a recognition, not a change at all. Fascinating. He's saying, know thyself. He's saying to realize who you are is a recognition and does not involve a change. It must be so simple and it must be so obvious that it's simply been covered over by clouds of complexity, we'll say egoic complexity, and yet the truth is so pristine, so simple, that it's always been there, but it simply wasn't recognized. And that's why throughout the history when they talk about people being self-realized beings, there's not a lot of them. Even if you look at the saints and the mystics and the avatars, there's not a lot throughout history that are described as self-realized being. So it must mean that the ego is so clever and so sneaky and so ingenious that it made up an environment that's so unlike heaven, but so seemingly real and so convincingly real that you wouldn't doubt it, that you would just accept it. Some of you remember in The Matrix, I think it was Agent Smith was talking to Neo, to Morpheus when he had him captive, and he's saying, human beings accept the world that is presented to them. And I was like, wow, even Agent Smith is channeling the Holy Spirit. Humans accept, or we'll say the sleeping mind accepts the world, the reality. It's not so much a reality, but it's the world that's presented to them. It's accepted as reality. And we talked about that last week. I was saying if you wanted to launch a spiritual career, a lucrative spiritual career, A Course in Miracles is not necessarily the best pathway for a spiritual career. I would suggest doing something more New Agey, like you create your own reality, because that is much more lucrative. Look at The Secret. Didn't they make that into a movie? The book. There's even a new movie that I watched that came with a spin-off made by the same people that made The Secret. It's very lucrative. You create your own reality. But actually the Course is not teaching that. I was talking with the man from South Africa today about, he was wanting to get clear on those distinctions. So what's fantastic about this movie is we'll just go into it and let it kind of take us in, and the whole point will be to discover what is the nature of the world. And if in discovering the nature of the world, that can give us a huge inroads and insight into the nature of ourself, our true self. So enjoy the movie. It's almost like we're back in 1998, 1999. We've got another great virtual reality movie to help us address self-judgment, self-attack, wanting to control, and feeling responsible for others. It's a tall order, but I think this movie is going to hit the home run. I have a feeling. So enjoy it. Okay. Perfect. It's just code. That's her scientific way upon calling upon Jesus. It's just code. Why why is she saying it's just code in the middle of this intense perceptual experience in which there seems to be some things going wrong? There's a glitch in the matrix. There's a glitch in the program, and she falls to her knees. She's having trouble breathing, and she just starts to everything is moving and distorting, and she's saying it's just code. It's just code. Is because the ego is synonymous with the code that seems to present us the perceptual world. It's she calls it, to the brain it's all chemicals, like there's no difference between fantasy and reality. She says there's no difference between something that's imagined or fantasized and something that seems to be actually happening. And yet, for human beings, there's a big difference between fantasy, something that could be hypothetically happen, and something that is happening in your experience. Something that is actually happening versus something that could happen, might happen, that is imagined as a possibility. And we've done so many movies talking about hypotheticals, including the movie Next, which was showing that basically the second half of the movie is a hypothetical. Just to give the teaching on what a hypothetical is. It's an as if. And then Jesus actually italicizes the two words as if in the manual for teachers when he's talking about the mind. And he says the mind looks as if it's described as if it has two parts, and he italicizes as if. So when he says the mind is described as if it has two parts, and he italicizes the as if, he's saying that basically the mind is whole and complete, and it's still singular, and yet it now seems to have a right mind and a wrong mind, a belief in ego or separation, and the Holy Spirit, the correction. So it seems to now have two parts. And the only reason he's describing it as if it has two parts is because the whole mind training of A Course in Miracles is dependent on discerning between those two parts, discerning the Holy Spirit and learning to totally embrace and choose the Holy Spirit's perspective on the world and relinquish or renounce the ego's perspective of separation. The coding, it would be like renouncing all coding that's going on. So she's just saying, it's just coding, it's just coding. As she starts to feel very upset, she's just reminding herself, it's coding. This is an invention. This is just the result of the coding. And when I was thinking about that before I came over today, I was trying to think, coding. I mean, we've watched another quantum movie, Source Code, but when I thought of coding today, I was thinking of, remember the Matrix, when Cypher is working at his computer and Neo comes in, and Cypher is just watching these bits of information. He's watching the coding. And basically he's showing that to Neo, and he's saying, yeah, this is the programming, this is the coding. And Neo's saying, well, it doesn't really look like anything. And he said, yeah, it's just the coding. In other words, it's the coding under the matrix. It's the coding that makes the matrix. And that's in one sense getting closer to where is the distortion. And I said earlier, the whole idea of fear has to rest on the belief in attack. So all of that coding is attack, is the belief in attack. That's what the coding of the ego is. It's the coding of the matrix, is the belief in attack. Now, in this case, she's using the eye drops, and it looks like almost like a recreational, like instead of smoking a joint or taking a hit of some hallucinogenic or psychedelic drug, she's just using the eye drops, and so she's having a perceptual experience that in one sense it seems quite enjoyable. She seems to be enjoying snowboarding on the snow. She seems to enjoy the freedom of the body. She seems to be enjoying the crispness of the air. It seems to be an enjoyable scene until it all starts to fade, and then she starts to feel very uncomfortable and remind herself that it's coding. I think this is a good preparation for all of us because it actually has tremendous transfer value if you start to realize that anytime you feel any sense of discomfort whatsoever, it's just the coding. It's a coding problem. It's not a temperature problem, it's not a food problem, it's not a sexual problem, it's not a money problem, a financial problem, it's not a body symptom problem, it's not a COVID-19 problem, it's not it's a rainy day problem, it's a cloudy day problem. I mean, if you look at the range, it's just, there's a massive range of things that are judged to be uncomfortable or not optimal, we'll say, not supremely optimal, even if we just use those terms. Anything that's less than supremely optimal, supremely joyful, supremely happy, that's a wide range of experiences we could call human experiences. But they really aren't human experiences because the human itself is coding. The humans aren't even experiencing the world. It's all just coding. All of time and space is coding. The whole cosmos is coding. Now, that can seem to be pretty vast, like that's a pretty sweeping generalization, but let me try to give you a little context for this. You know, in what seems to be the passage of time, if you would, years ago, would interview people about time, for example, an interesting topic, and they would, how does time pass for you? Some would say, well, sometimes it passes rather quickly. Sometimes it seems to be gone from awareness. Cliches, time flies when you're having fun. Isn't that an interesting cliche? Time flies when you're having fun. I mean, you're not so concerned about time when you're having fun. Really, who's thinking about what time it is? If you're having fun, if you're in happiness and joy, you don't really care about time. And yet most people, you know, just like we look at science, Newtonian science and quantum, most people from on back in history and up through Newtonian science would basically say, time seems to be an absolute. It's like if you're a fish, the water seems to be an absolute. You know, I mean, if you're a fish and you've lived every moment of your experience in the water, and somebody could interview the fish, like with a microphone, and telepathically will say, what's going on with the water? And the fish would go, what? Like, it's so accustomed to it, it so assumes it, that's so all it's known. It's not, what makes us think the fish would think that it's separate and distinct from the water? And even with little children, you know, it's an interesting moment when there seems to be a discernment of a mother's face as something. It can be included into the perception, like, oh, I'm so cute. Who are you? You know, there's a moment of otherness, which is like a strange moment. And if we look at time, a lot of people would think time is an absolute. For example, what do I mean by that? That 1 second is 1 second is 1 second. That a second is always a second. You must remember this. A kiss is still a kiss. A smile is still a smile. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. A second is a second. We don't say a Guatemalan second or an Argentinian second or a Great British second. You know, because why? We know, we have an assumption that a second is always a second. No matter where you are in the world, In Brazil, even in Brazil, a second is a second. Maybe not in ISO's world, but most cases. And so we think of time as an absolute. Now, what they've proven now is that time is not an absolute. In fact, when they studied the whole cosmos, the only thing that they found that was consistent in all of the cosmos was definitely not time, but it was the speed of light. The speed of light was a constant. So that's the closest thing we have to like an absolute in perceptual world. And then they've done studies where these quantum physicists would basically take an atomic clock, which is the most accurate clock you can have on Earth, an atomic clock. And they would take an atomic clock, and then they would have a second atomic clock, and they would set them to an identical time. And you know where I'm going with this. They're going to move the clocks, and you'd think, if a second is always a second, that no matter where you move the clock, that when you bring these two atomic clocks together, they're going to be telling the same time, because a second is just a second. Tick, tick, tick. It's not tick-tock, tick-tock, tick. A second's, I'm going to race you, ha-ha, I'm a faster second than you are, ha-ha. No, a second is a second in human perception. But what they did was they had an atomic clock, and then they put another identical atomic clock set to the same time, except they put it in a supersonic jet, and they flew the atomic clock, not the one on the ground, but the one in the air. It flew around the globe. The plane landed. They put the clocks together. Guess what? The atomic clocks are not telling the same time. Ooh, a second is not a second. Something happened. And Einstein was onto it too. At the turn of the century, Einstein said, basically, time and space are connected in some strange way. Time and space are connected, and he used a word for them, and it wasn't absolute. It was relative. What? Time is relative? Well, colors can be relative. Human beings can be relative. The sky can be relative. But what science showed, what quantum physics showed, was that time and space are connected and they are relative. In fact, some of you might have seen the movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, where he goes off on this mission, and when he comes back, his young daughter is not his young daughter anymore, because he went so close to a black hole. And Einstein says, yeah, that's one of the factors. Gravitation, flying that atomic clock around the globe at high speeds, there was gravitational forces that seemed to change the clocks. So time and space are entirely relative. Well, if they're relative, maybe that's all part of one perceptual distortion. Because when we think about truth, I'm talking divine truth, I'm talking God is truth, I'm talking about heaven truth, I'm talking about eternity. We don't think of eternity as relative, maybe it'll change when I'm ready for eternity, maybe, it'll be a different eternity. We don't tend to think of eternity as something, that's more of an absolute, even though nobody on earth knows what that means. Can you paint it for me? No. Speak it? No. What does it mean? I don't know. It's not known in time and space, because everything in time and space changes. Even in Corinthians in the Bible, it talks about that which is eternal and that which will pass away. It makes a distinction between the everlasting and the passing, the eternal and the temporal. Even in Corinthians in the Bible, there's that distinction. So here we are, back to the movie. She's there, and she's just going coding. It's just coding, just coding. And this will be important in this movie, because actually, any time you experience any kind of discomfort, loss, sadness, loneliness, hurt, pain, any kind of, when you feel bored, it's coding. When you feel in pain, it's coding. When you feel exhilarated because of something that you've experienced in time and space, that's coding. The positive aspects of the ooh la la of this world is coding. The negative aspects are coding. It's Morpheus telling Neo, it's a prison for your mind. The mind that has accepted the ego's coding is in prison. People aren't in prison. Gandhi never really was in prison. Mandela was never really in prison. It's the mind that believes in the coding and perceives the linear world and experiences the many different facets of what seem to be separation, the many degrees of separation in all of its ways and shapes and forms. That's where the prison is. So in this movie, she's got this eye drops with this coding. It produces a perceptual experience. We saw already that she went to visit her brother in the hospital. She kept urging him to go for another swim. He had a swimming mishap. He is now, we'll say, kind of like a vegetable in the hospital. He's alive, but he's not responding. He seems to be incoherent, and he just doesn't respond to the world whatsoever. She feels a sense of grief and loss, and she's even trying to use the drops to get him to pull him out of it. If she thinks he's in a coma, she's trying to put drops like she's invented for, we'll say, recreational purposes to try to bring him back, because she misses him. And now she's in front of this panel that are concerned about the risks of this new technology. And so basically the panel has just said to her, so there are risks. And she said yes. So she's admitted that from a perspective, you could say, of what the world calls safe, this is a bit risky. All of this that I'm sharing now will be extremely important as we move on in this movie. And I would say, what is the relevancy of this movie and this topic to our experiences? Ding! 100% relevancy. 100% relevancy. None of this is irrelevant, because as long as I'm denying that it's just ego coding, it's just this belief and attack in the mind that is unexposed, and I believe in the coding, then I will continue to have opinions. Oh, that's good, that's bad. I wish this would happen. Oh, I like this, but I don't like this. What we call the human experience is completely dependent on the coding. As a contrast, Jesus says that once you learn to listen only to one voice, only to the Holy Spirit, that the body will be used and it will be invulnerable as long as it's needed, and then it will be gently laid aside. That's it. So you're saying if I listen to the Holy Spirit, then I'm invulnerable, and I go from my invulnerable happy dream state into eternity, and back to being what I always have been, one with God. Yeah, that's basically the teachings of the Course. If you line up with the Holy Spirit, you've got no problems. There are no problems in alignment, and it's only in the coding that the perception of issues arises. And they can take a huge range of different forms, but that's not our concern. Our concern is the release of the coding. And so you'll see in this movie that will become a central issue as well for the main character. There's just a line that was spoken, I can't let that one pass, it's too valuable. A facsimile of an experience that you've never had just seems isolating. Oh, believe me, to someone on a panel, they're concerned about the risk of somebody becoming addicted to the experience. She's already assured someone that the panel that it would just be it's just for a day. It's not. It doesn't carry over. It doesn't last. But we've just heard her partner, who's interested in profits and money, talking about long-term and lifetime, and like that's where it's heading. It's heading to just getting completely caught up in a facsimile experience. And one of the questioners is saying, having a facsimile of an experience that you've never had sounds isolating. Now let's turn it back to heaven. Suppose you're the Christ, and suppose you're only knowing love, because that's all that's in heaven is love. God is love. God is the creator of love. You're love. Everything that you know is only love. You only know the emotion of love. You can call it happiness, joy, whatever you want to call it, but it's heaven. And then a facsimile of an experience that you've never had seems isolating. That's earth. That's time and space. That's a facsimile of an experience that you've never had. Why? Because you were created as a perfect being in perfect love. Divine perfect love. If that's the only experience, if that's the reality of what God is and what the creations of God are, then the time-space experience would be a facsimile that you've never had. It would be isolating. If you're not used to time and space, you're just used to eternity, and then suddenly you're experiencing time and space, that's separation. That's an isolating event. So it's such a good line. I mean, if you could read it two ways. From the earth perspective, which is a risk, watch out for the risk, and from the eternal perspective, like, you wouldn't want a facsimile. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Eternal life is the real thing, and time and space has to be some kind of a coding that's based on attack and defense, and victim and victimizer, and you hurt my feelings, and you make me mad. It just goes on and on and on. It's a vast illusion, but it still has to be as simple as there must be some coding under the matrix, under the facsimile, under the fantasy, under the fabrication, under the fiction must be just coding. And if you can see the impossibility of the coding, then it would transfer to everything that the coding produces. So this is where Jesus is saying, this is why you have to come back to the mind, because you have to really crack the code with the Holy Spirit's help in the mind. It's not going to help tinkering around with the deck chairs on the Titanic. The ship is sinking. Hey, people, leave those chairs alone. That ship is going down into the icy Atlantic, and if you choose to go with it, and you're fiddling with the chairs, then you will probably just have another coding experience called another lifetime, and as many other coding experiences as you want. But coding doesn't substitute for reality. This is not about create your own reality. This is about discover the coding and let it go, is more that's a Course in Miracles version. This is, the source code would be innocence, and the ego code would be guilt and fear and pain and anger. And so this movie is helping us start to see, wow, this is really relevant. This is relevant to my experiences. Okay, here we go. Okay, now it's getting interesting here. You can see she's quite obsessed with this testing and coding and fixing the code, because her motivation is to try to help her brother. She misses her brother. She feels a sense of loss without her brother. So her motivation is the loss and the missing. She's trying to perfect this code because she's hoping that she can bring back her brother. Her business partner, Sam, is in it for the money. He's like saying, let's do this long term, and yeah, let's, that's where the direction's heading. It's like it could revolutionize the way we interact with the world and how we see ourselves, and he's interested in making a lot of money, even in all these different entertainment. It's more like entertainment, but there's a money-making motive underneath for that. And then for many people, it would just be entertainment value. I would say what is meant by entertainment, it's distraction. We don't watch movies for distraction. We watch movies for spiritual awakening, for healing, for forgiveness, for insight into what's happening in our awareness, in our consciousness, how this can help me be happy, how I can be healed through watching movies. You see, it's the purpose or the motive is so important. And what I'm going to say is that everybody we've seen here seems to have a little bit different motive for the code. But if you could see that the code was synonymous with hatred, what motive would it matter if you could see it as the code was to cover over eternal life? The code was to block you from knowing divine love. The code was to keep you from knowing God and who you are. It wouldn't matter if you were coming at it from a sense of missing something, or entertainment, or profit, or making money. If you could see the code for what it is, you would say, I don't want it. I don't want it, and I don't need it. But if you don't see the code and you just see the outcomes of the code, the perceptions of the code, and you think that some aspects of what you perceive, which is coming from the code, are good and valuable and worth pursuing, and other aspects of the perception are worth denying, avoiding, pushing away. Think about the ads when we're growing up. You watch all the commercials. The advertisements are generally to try to entice you to buy something, vote for something, obtain something. I mean, I do remember back some cycles ago where they actually were using these kind of associations in the mind as part of the election campaigns. I remember this goes way back to when Ronald Reagan was running for presidency. This goes way back. But the United States at the time, he was running for president of the United States, and the United States was going through this big conflict with Russia. And there was a lot of fear about Russia, nuclear armaments, and war, and all these kind of things. And then the ad comes on, and it shows an outdoor scene, and you're sitting there. What's this? What kind of ad is this? It's just an outdoor scene. And then they bring into this outdoor scene a bear. Sometimes Russia was seen as a bear. So in the perception of the United States. So there's a bear. So now we have a bear in nature. And then the voiceover says, there's a bear loose. Nobody knows if the bear is tame or vicious. There's just a bear loose. So it's ambiguity. There's a bear. And then the final frames of maybe the 30-second commercial, they bring this bear they bring in a human being in the context, and you see how big this bear is compared to the human being. And then it says, vote Reagan. I'm like, whoa, that's some psychological This was a political advertisement. There's a bear, nobody knows if it's tame, and then they bring it in the context of a human being, and then vote. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. That was like an association to vote based on fear for your life. Vote for the guy that can handle the bear. He said that was the psychology of it. Anyway, most of us are more familiar with the images in advertising that are enticed, made to have us purchase something or take an action towards something. I remember, I don't know if it was maybe a car commercial. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Well, that's kind of nice. A Chevrolet car with baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. Better go out to my Chevy dealer and buy a good old Chevrolet because it goes with baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. It's all based on association. But what I'm saying is, what if you knew that the coding was hatred? Would that make a difference? And that's what Jesus said, this world was made on hate. He describes the motivation behind the making of this linear time-space cosmos. The Big Bang was based on hatred. And what if you knew that was the code, that everything that you were perceiving, everything without exception, and we do know from Jesus there's an alternative, that you can come to the moment and you can sink down beneath that code, sink down in your mind into the kingdom of heaven, that it's not like the code is impenetrable, but that's what the mind training of the Course is. It's like sink down, be all the riotous sights and sounds of the world to the kingdom of heaven within, and that's the purpose. But what I'm saying is we're watching this movie just to start to get a little bit clearer in our mind that the code itself that is underneath this world is what makes the world a problem. It's not, the world is not a problem in and of itself. The Holy Spirit has a different way of looking at the world, which is a very simultaneous way, I'll say. It's not a linear way at all. It's just a simultaneous perspective that's very happy. It's very joyful. But from this movie is really starting to show us, like, what is the coding? And for the main character here, she's going on a ride. I think that's the name of the company that made it, Let It Ride. This is a Let It Ride production, and the main character is going to let it ride, only to take a closer look at the coding. Okay. So, we see there's what the people were concerned about the risks with it, but again, if we take it to a broader perspective, they finish having sex. She says, "You want to try something, and it's really cool." And so she gives him a sample of the coating, the eye drop coating. He goes through it, and what did he say when he comes out of it? "I didn't think it would be so real." And then, not shortly after that, you want to go again? Can I go again? Think of that in terms of lifetimes. Think of that in terms of reincarnation. I didn't think it would be so real. I want to go again. And then going back immediately, what if those little vials that while she's working on her phone were coding to reincarnate? And he just picked it up, and he was quite excited by the adventure before, and he wants to go again, and he pulls the top off and puts the eye drops in. Well, she's not even aware. She's concerned about what her partner's up to with the whole project and everything. And then when she turns, he's basically lost in there. If it's this movie, you can see it from a literal time-space perspective, but then if you look at the implications that go deeper in terms of what the coding is, that's where we really can have an amazing experience, because the whole point of the Course is simply for us to see the coding exactly as it is. And Jesus says, if you really knew what the ego was, if you really could see it, you wouldn't want it. In other words, it's the enticing part of it is when you see what the ego produces, and you think there's certain things attractive about what it produces, but you don't really see the content that's underneath it. The coding is hatred. So when you go for it, it's not so mysterious. People always say, why do bad things happen to good people? I think I was here having a lunch when, was it Norma's husband? It's like, why? I'm a good guy, I'm a decent guy. And yet I had some things that just happened to me this morning that were not good. Why do bad things happen to good, decent people? It's just that the people and the things are the projection of the coding, and until you get down and see the coding for exactly what it is, then that's where the mystery comes in. The mystery, there are many spiritualities that just say God is a great mystery. The Course isn't really teaching God is the great mystery. God is the known. And the world is the mysterious place, and the reason it's so mysterious is because of the coding. And when you get a glimpse of what's beyond the coding, what do they call that in the Course? Revelation. Reveal. Revelation. Revealing the light. Revelating. Revealing the light. So that's what I like about this movie, is it's got a surface level of another kind of simulation, virtual kind of thing going on, but then when you look at the implications underneath it in terms of practical experience, then it's really an inroads to joy. It's because you have to see the coding for what it is before you can experience the joy as it is. Okay, this scene may seem familiar to you. Where have I seen it? Everywhere. All the fairy tales, all the stories. The Lion King, little Simba's down there, and his dad comes down to rescue him, and then the herd of animals comes storming down, and Mufasa gets Simba up, and then has to try to escape, and as he gets to the top of the canyon, Scar, Mufasa's brother, basically pulls his claws out and throws Mufasa down to his death. And then, if that's not enough, Simba comes over to Uncle Scar, and basically Scar tells him, "You killed your daddy, now run. Run in shame, run in guilt." This is the Lion King playing out of what the ego tried to pull with the sleeping Son of God. You separated from God, so you did a terrible, terrible thing, and there's no going back. You don't think that you're just going to be able to go back to God and be totally welcomed and loved after what you did. You separated from God, so God will punish you. You can see the punishment here. She's got a boyfriend, Danny. She's not paying attention. Danny kind of, we'll say, overdoses on the code, and then, that's going to be 10 to 15 years. You killed him, basically. You're responsible for the death, and now you have to pay the price. And so here's a deal. It's only 1 minute of human time, but it will seem like a year of confinement, because it's the thing that was discussed a little bit earlier in the movie about rehabilitating criminals. You give them a punishment of confinement, of isolation, so that they can have remorse and feel terrible and bad for what they did, and then that's the world's view of rehabilitation. Torture and remorse. Oh great, that sounds like a great correction for the problem. But this is the way it works. That's what the penal system, why do we have a court system? To bring in people, to judge people if they've done crimes, to send them off to prison, to jail, to pay the price for the crime that they've committed. If you look at the dynamics underneath this, what we're seeing in the movie, it's the same dynamics that Jesus is describing in the Course. You believed you sinned. He says over and over and over, you can seem to do many things, but there's actually one thing that you can never do: sin. Jesus comes wailing in from the other side, and he says, oh no, you're not capable of sin, because sin is separation from source. And Jesus is saying, you can't do that. You weren't created that way. You can't pull off the impossible and separate yourself from a divine loving source. You can do many things, but you have even creative ability in heaven, but one thing you can't do is sin. You can see where the Christians kind of react. What? Jesus is saying you cannot sin. It's absolutely impossible to sin, because if you could, then separation would be real, and it's not. So basically you can't. So he reinterprets it as an error to be corrected, and he offers the correction. Well, that's a way shower, that's good. You still are responsible for accepting the correction for the fear. Remember, we started off with that. It's not like, Daddy, rescue me, help me, like Benito. No, it's you can't just look to Daddy to save the day here. You have to accept that you are responsible for this correction. That's what we call mind training. That's why we're watching this movie. For Christ's sake, that's why we're watching the movie, is to accept the correction, because we want to be happy, really super happy. I mean, not just kind of. And this is the whole thing that now she's going through. What's her name in here? Ren. This is what Ren's going through. This panel, what happened? He died. And then the testing, wasn't this tested, almost like it's this heavy weight of responsibility, like you've done something wrong. Your boyfriend is dead. And in this world, those that are guilty must be punished. Jesus comes again, he's as strong about you can't sin as he is about guilt. He says at one point, there is one thing that you must ultimately learn, that guilt is always totally insane and has no reason. Now that's the kind of way shower. You can't sin, and oh yeah, and guilt is always totally insane. Not sometimes, not, oh, you should feel guilty about that. Oh, that's terrible. No, he's wiping it clean. He's saying guilt is always totally insane. And don't you see that he's also appealing to say that the only reason you can feel guilt is if you believe an attack has occurred that's real. And what greater attack could there be than to believe you could separate from your source? That's got to be the ultimate of an attack thought. Not somebody caning somebody or squishing a bug on the rug or something like this. We're talking about pull your identity away from God, your source, your creator. That's the ontological guilt, which Jesus is saying it's insane. It absolutely cannot occur. But if guilt cannot occur, if attack's not real, if the code's not real, what are we looking at? That's the question. What am I perceiving? If the code isn't if the code of hatred, I'll call it, the code of hatred, maybe that's what we'll call our group movie tonight, the code of hatred. If the code of hatred isn't real, and Jesus is telling us, oh, I assure you it isn't. This is no source code. This This is a fear code, and it's an attack code, and you don't want it. You do not want this code, because it can't bring you anything that you do want. If God is your source, and knowing God is knowing yourself and knowing love, and this code was made to cover all that over, and then set up what? A game of punishment? That's what we're seeing here. She was the one who said, it's supposed to just be a temporary experience, and then her partner was saying, well, that's not the direction we're going in. We're going into lifetime, I think he used the words long-term lifetime. And she was like, but no, we need more testing, we need more servers, she's saying like this. It kind of reminds me of what's going on with global warming and the presidential race and everything. I saw that on the news the other day, maybe it was yesterday, or 2 days ago. It was a speech by President Trump saying if Joe Biden is elected, he will listen to the scientist. This was in a speech. And I'm like looking, and then they said, and then Joe Biden responded on Twitter, yes. That was the whole exchange. So it was almost like a threat, like watch out. If this guy's elected, he'll listen to the scientists, and then he'll put everybody in lockdown and whatever. But his answer was yes. So I thought, well, this is what the code brings you. This is the kind of thing that you're dealing with. This is the world that we perceive today, and it's all based on the code. It's all based on the code. So now he's basically saying, save the company, we'll get extra money, the company will continue, the project, OTHERLIFE will continue and everything, and all you have to do is spend 1 minute of time in confinement, in this virtual confinement. It will seem like a year, but it's just, come on, it's a deal. I did it for you, my best programmer. And yet, if Jesus was there whispering in her ear, he would say, guilt is always totally insane and has no reason. Sin, you cannot sin. You cannot go wrong. You can't, don't buy this lie, is basically what Jesus is. That's what the whole Course in Miracles is aimed at. Don't buy the lie. Don't believe in the lie. Because if you believe in guilt, then fear and punishment shall surely follow. Because why? Who invented the fear? The ego. Who invented the punishment? The ego. Well, oftentimes the ego will project that onto God. A wrathful God, a punishing God, you'll burn in hell and all this stuff. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. It even projects the fear of God and the belief in punishment onto God, even though God has nothing to do with any of it. God is love. Christ is love. Who we are is pure love. And yet you can see this dynamic in this movie is fascinating for teaching the teachings of A Course in Miracles. It's just fascinating, because it's got the whole virtual thing going on there, and you can see all the motives that are underneath playing out in the characters. So here we go. Now she's being told basically she doesn't have a choice. She's going to have to accept the wrongness, accept the guilt, and accept the punishment, which is 1 minute of confinement with the code, and played out as 1 year of confinement. And that, it sounds a little bit like Inception, how Inception, we always heard dreaming, and then with Inception, we're like, what the hell is this? Layers? Christopher Nolan, we're all, well, what the hell is this? Layers, and how do you get out of these layers upon layers, dreaming upon dreaming upon dreaming upon dreaming? Oh, you've got to have a kick. Oh, that's really good. You need some kind of a strong kick to break the mesmerism of the layers and layers of dream. And this is showing us that this movie tonight is our kick. Jesus is like, listen, please pay attention here. I'm trying to save thousands of years with this movie tonight, because this movie is the kick. And the kicker is we're innocent, that we haven't sinned. That's the kicker line. Because the ego is like, no. Everyone has sinned, and the guilty must be punished. And then, of course, it projects all a future of, you're gonna have to pay the price. You're going to have to face God sometime along the line, down the line, and no wonder people get afraid of God with that kind of making up that kind of God, and then making a linear time, and then this scenario where you've got to meet your Creator, having believed that you've separated. That's it's crazy. It's absolutely absurd. So here we go. Let's see how how Ren handles this impossible situation. Yeah. Wow, that tiny little cube gets smaller and smaller there. And the ego invented time, linear time. The ego invented space. The ego invented numbers. Yeah, interesting calendar. Talk about in your face. A calendar that's a digital 001. And all you have to do is stare at that for 24 hours until it goes to 002. And then all you have to do is stare at that for another 24 hours. And you see how big the numbers are, and even kind of a iridescent light coming off and a buzzing, kind of a technical sound. And you'll have food and drink. But we have to go back to Einstein, that remember Einstein was teaching that time is relative. And what Jesus does in the Course is he says, actually time is under my control. That's very interesting when Jesus says, time is under my control. And he said, if you'll be a miracle worker for me, time will be under your control too. Under your control? You mean that that's what happens to be a miracle worker, that you are then, time and space are under the control of the miracle worker? Wow, talk about flipping things around from a seeming external construct to time is in the hands of the miracle worker. Time is under my control. In fact, Jesus will say things like, if you'll do miracles for me, I will arrange time and space for you. Talk about a flip from something that you can be, under the ego's teachings, completely a victim of, completely stuck in, completely trapped in, a total entrapment, to time is in the hands of the miracle worker. I mean, when I first read that, I have to say, I was like, wow, I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. It sounds good. It sounds better than anything I've experienced. But, you're looking and you're saying, wow, time is under the hands of the miracle worker. I don't know. I will arrange time and space. Yeah, I don't know what that means. My mom and dad I never heard that in Bible school. Imagine in church Bible school, yeah, Davy, you'll grow up and you'll be a miracle worker and you'll have time and space under your control. No, they didn't. That was never taught in Bible school. And yet that just shows you how it starts off the Course with 50 miracle principles. And I have to say that there came a point where I was on the move so much and I just got so swept up in the miracles, and the day was just so filled with miracles that I could actually see I could feel the arranging part, like it felt very surreal, like it was all being arranged. And I also could feel like a surreal feeling that I was losing track of time. Kind of like I felt when I was a little boy, when I would play in the creek in the backyard during the summer. And I had so much fun playing with the frogs and the crawdads and the clay and everything, that I would actually have the experience of losing track of time, where I literally forgot what time it was because I was having so much fun playing. That was kind of maybe an early memory of a miracle, of being so much into the play. But actually that's the incentive that we have for giving ourselves over to have miracles come through us, is because it rearranges our perception of the world, and it gives us a completely different perception of time. And if time is relative and space is relative, why not? Why couldn't it be rearranged? If it's just relative anyway, if it wasn't created, if it's just projections, why couldn't the projections be arranged? Why couldn't there be a correction to the code? Some kind of intercession, some kind of beautiful ray of light coming through and slicing past the code and showing a different world that's beyond the code. So I do feel like these scenes are helpful in the sense that they're just showing that she's the inventor of the code that now she is seemingly imprisoned by. But how can you be imprisoned by something that you yourself have invented, unless perhaps you forgot that you invented it? In other words, if something can be invented, it surely must be able to be uninvented. If something was devised, it surely must be a way for it to be unraveled or undone. If she seemed to do something by inventing it. And I think this is what this confinement, this perceptual virtual confinement, to me is all about. It's like, how can I be at the mercy of something that I invented? And if I have a question about that, I can always go to the course workbook lesson. I have invented the world I see. Okay. All right. That's good, because if I've invented it, then perhaps I can forgive it and I can release it. But I first have to recall that I invented it, because otherwise I feel like I'm just a dream figure in somebody else's dream. I'm at the mercy of some wild, crazy dreamer, and I'm totally at the mercy. And most of us have felt like that. Have any hands about that? Like in the world where you felt like in the mercy of society, of conditioning, of genetics, of DNA, of time and space, of just at the mercy of the world, like, oh great, another day, and of I don't know what, sometimes you wake up in the morning like, oh boy, what's next? So you get that thought, what now? What next? What now is pretty good if you really take it into the now, but what's next is kind of a depressing thought, because there's a feeling of helplessness, like what is going to be shown to me, or what do I have to go through today? Sometimes the mind can feel that way, and she's in. We all know it from watching the movie. It's a virtual imprisonment, and she is the inventor. She's the inventor of the code. She's not the businessman partner. She's the inventor. She's the originator. So that, I think that applies pretty strongly to all of us, because we can't really claim the victim role if we're the inventor. You can't be the inventor and the victim. So it's a step. It's a step toward reality, towards truth. The belief that people keep their word is just a belief. People are beliefs. Their word is a belief. Everything is a belief. And the faster we come back to start to realizing that everything is a thought and everything is a belief, the faster we can let it go. Because there's even a part in the Course in Miracles where Jesus comes right out and he said, this world is a world of ideas. That's fascinating, really. Imagine being told the world is a world of ideas. And if that's the case, there is nothing, we can't make distinctions and say, these ideas, better ideas, worse ideas, good ideas, bad ideas, concrete things, actual things being different from ideas. Like I can imagine a blue cup of iced tea, but then people would say, well, but an actual cup of blue iced tea is different from an imagined hypothetical. What if this is hypothetical? What if it's all a world of ideas? And in that sense, that's a beautiful scene in the sense that reaching that point where she's waiting for the shh, you've served your time and your time is up, and a hug or something, and it's just the calendar shifts back to number one. That brought up the rage. It's like people need to mean what they say, because even before she was going in, she was telling exactly how she wanted it, injected in the cerebrum, and she's the inventor, so she and don't forget the exit. You've done the exit routine and so on and so forth. Check. But in the end, this is why Jesus says, don't project the ego to time, because when you project it to time and space, you overlook you don't really acknowledge the error. You simply go for the distraction, which is, it's my partner's issue, my mom's issue, my body's issue, the world's issue, it's a political issue, it's a financial issue, it then turns from code into something specific. And then you spend your mind energy trying to overcome that specific. You're poor? Oh, just work hard and be rich. You're ugly? Somebody calls you ugly? Work hard. Get out, do that training program. Do some sit-ups and push-ups. Get some makeup, some lipstick. Eat something. Eat good stuff. Don't be eating junk food. Do something about it. You're ugly, do something about it to beautify yourself. You're uneducated, you're ignorant, educate yourself. Read. Go to school, go to university. You see, that's the trick of the ego, it's saying you have to do something, do anything, do something in form to overcome the lack that you are. And the ego planted the lack idea too. You're incomplete, you're lacking, you need things. Oh, here's a world where you can actually do something about it. And that's why we have all these sessions on undoing the doer, because it's like when she starts to write out all the things, human contact, human interaction, a window, she starts to write out in her little thing all the things that she really would like. She started getting her wish board going there too, until she smashed it and threw it and said, there's nobody to read it. She had the realization, and that was part of one of those belief ideas. Oh my gosh, all these things are just ideas and beliefs. So actually this movie is quite helpful in the sense that I've always said that you can't really wake up until you see you have a perceptual problem. That's what this movie is. It's an entire movie, because people do write in, how do I do that? How do I see that I have a perceptual problem? Watch OTHERLIFE. If you watch Other Life and you see, oh, I believe I have an other life other than my eternal life. It's an other life. And then that itself is the perceptual problem. Not in this moment. I mean, I remember saying many times there are no problems this moment. All the problems are either remembered in memory or anticipated, projected into an imaginary future. But there are no problems right now. And that's the saving grace. That's what Jesus is, he's like saying, come to the holy instant. Lay everything aside and desire the holy instant, desire this moment more than anything else. And then that brings a disappearance of the anything else. What's the line from the Course? My friend Donna Marie Carey used to take Course lessons and Course sayings, and she would make song out of them. I remember driving along in the summer with her, and she's got her guitar and she's singing, "You are my goal, my Father, only you. You are my goal, my Father, only you." Just taking a line from the Course, a workbook lesson, and then just putting it to music and just turning it into what we call a Course chant. It doesn't matter, you don't like that one? I am as God created me. You don't like the word Father? That's all right, it's just a belief. You don't have to change the words of the Course, so just say, oh, I prefer another one. I'm going back to heaven with, there is nothing to fear, or I am as God created me, or I am sustained by the love of God. I am under no laws but God's. It doesn't matter. Pick anyone that you want. But it's just give your soul heart to it, give everything to it, because it's an escape hatch. Some of you even remember those lessons, 183, 184, and where Jesus talks about the name of God. The name of God is my inheritance. And I like those lessons where Jesus says, here, you can safely put this one word in place of all the other words that you made up. That's pretty an interesting exercise. Here, I'm going to give you a word that you can substitute for all the other meaningless words that you invented. And what's the word? God. He gives it. That's his word. You got to love Jesus. Well, Isa is not so happy. He's leaving now. He didn't like that. Maybe he's an atheist, but use another word. Purr. Use anything. Meow. It doesn't matter. You can go back to God with meow. ISO. Use your own name. It's like just give everything you've got to the one safe replacement that you're giving instead of all the multiplicity of what was made up. So I think that's a beautiful point in this movie when she reacts with anger, because you don't escape from a prison of the mind through something external, through somebody else flipping the switch. Otherwise you're at the mercy of whoever's holding the switch, whoever's holding the virtual confinement switch. And you see you're still at the mercy of an external. So, okay, let's see what happens to Ren. Okay. That was a little bit like an acid trip. Oh my. Well, I think the thing that I noticed this time through was after she got out of her crate, it's just hypotheticals and stories. When she seemed to get out of a crate, that was a story that offered an explanation of an end in time, which is just a story. And then she went through that little empty warehouse, and then there was, the cans of tuna and the water. That's a story. You see, the ego always has to explain something about time to to convince the mind that it continues on. There has to be a story only for convincing of continuity in time. But Jesus tells us the only continuity there is in eternity, that it can never be found in time. So all the stories are simply part of the attempt to stay asleep. And even when she seems to be chased, jumps in the car and she's chased, and then that it just begins more hypotheticals. And they're all just attempts to explain the impossible. So how does it work with miracles? Well, it works with miracles as you still see these scenarios, but as you keep giving yourself over to the Spirit, Jesus describes the borderland in which you're aware that every decision is already made. Of course it has to be that way, because time and space are the belief that there are choices to be made, and that's part of the denial of beingness, of what it means to just simply be. So it's all part of the time collapse, but in the end, there aren't any stories where you go, oh, this story is how it ends. It's more of a collapse of perception into an experience of just unification, where you don't try to read meaning into the images. That's the different perspective of the way of looking upon the world. You don't have to say, oh, this happened and then this and then that, because you don't have a need to try to read meaning or find understanding in the scenarios and the hypotheticals of what seem to be linear time. So that's, in the end, that's what be still and know that I'm God. It means enter into a state of mind where you simply surrender everything. And when you really look back at those workbook lessons of the Course, lesson number 1, nothing I see means anything. It's not anything but a portal. It's anything but a complete portal. I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me, number 2. That's a portal. These thoughts do not mean anything. That's a portal. Everything is offered as just a gateway or a portal to let go of trying to figure out the world, because as long as there are stories or overlays where you try to find meaning where there is none, then that's just an attempt at the impossible. I remember one time I asked Jesus, I said, what is reincarnation? He said, that's just an attempt to explain the impossible. Of course, that it could be nothing but that. But in the end, it's surrendering into a state of mind where you let go of trying to figure things out. As you look at this movie, though, then it's very clear that the code of linear time is the attempt at maintaining and reinforcing guilt, and that gives a new meaning to let go and let God. That gives a new meaning to I surrender. I surrender to you. It's always been described by all of the saints and the mystics and the poets as a letting go or a surrender. And this movie really kind of shows that in a very direct way, because you can see it's just the pattern repeats. Even toward the end, when he wants to seemingly use Ren for another time in to get more data for the program, and then she flips it around, and it's like you really get to see what is the emotion that arises. And in that case with Ren, it was revenge. I'll show you exactly what it feels like. It's a reverse of in the Bible there's the golden rule. Everybody knows the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto you. And Jesus actually makes a commentary in the course on the golden rule. He's even explaining the golden rules. And basically he says, do unto others as you would have done unto you, but it depends on what your state of mind is and your purpose. The rule itself doesn't mean anything. I mean, I've heard people twist it around. Oh, I'm giving it to them like they gave it to me, the golden rule. And it's like, Jesus is like, no, that's not actually what we're trying to do here. We're working on forgiveness, Forgive and you shall be forgiven. Knock and the door shall be opened. Forgive, be happy, and then experience the happiness of being happy. Judge not, lest ye be judged. That's what the eye drops were. That's the code right there. But the emphasis is on judge not. Not because you shouldn't. He's not saying judge not. I'm telling you, you shouldn't judge. He's saying you can't. You can't. It's not possible. Attack's not possible. Judgment's not possible. And while you still believe in judgment, then the Holy Spirit offers you guidance, which is helpful judgment. That's what guidance is. While you still believe there's choices to be made among all the hypotheticals, let the Holy Spirit lead you in those. Who to call, where to go, how to spend your blessed day. Let the guidance of the Holy Spirit practically take you through and find the happiness and the joy. Yet, always remember, it's a leaping off, it's a surrender. You're not, guidance is also temporary. It's just a helpful device that's used for a brief time. That's what we're into. We're into divine guidance. We're into Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss, follow your guide, follow your intuition, follow your joy, and be taken to a leaping off point where you are willing to let God take the final step and remember that perfection. So thank you, and I would love to open it up. Pete, if anybody has any hands or digital hands or hypothetical hands, I had to get that one in there, a little hypothetical joke, then please use your hypothetical hand motion so we can hear from you.
Okay, well, I've just posted the instructions in the chat there if anybody wants to raise their digital hand. And we can go with Esther. Unmute yourself there.
I experienced a lot of like here we go again with the hospitalizations that I had. But I would take the course book with me, and only recently though, like today even, the idea that you were saying that is this going to happen? What is going to happen today? Like with the ego's thoughts and stuff, and I hadn't had that in a long time. And this movie brought up a lot, and I just want to be able to go to sleep and not be afraid of tomorrow. With the ideas that were presented tonight, and I just wanted to share one more thing. Jean Martin and I have connected, and she's still in a lot of pain. And she asked me, what is the purpose of her living now? And I said to her that if I were to answer that for you, I said, it's to experience, to shine your light and to forgive the pain, to forgive the opportunities for forgiveness. And then I talked to Alan, and he said there's also that to transcend the ego. I didn't think of that when I talked to her, but she contacted me during the movie, and it's like 2 a.m. in her time. I don't know. She's up, and I just felt like, what am I doing trying to help somebody when I'm still working on things myself? And then with my mother, and she said she's losing her memory now, even worse. And it's a perception of hers. And she's in a lot of pain right now. And then there are so many things that have to get done with her body. And I just don't want to revert back to what does this day have for me? I want you to, if you could, repeat what it is I would want to look at it as, instead of what not to look at it as. Because, like I said, the tendency is coming back to see it with the wrong mind.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. It's actually what struck me this time when I saw the movie is when Ren was in her year of confinement, her 1 minute of 1 year of confinement. I noticed this time that there was a point when she got into it a bit where she started to just pay attention to these thoughts in her mind. And I this time through, I really noticed that she replayed when her boyfriend Danny said, "You mind if I go again?" which she did not consciously hear when he said that, because she was working with her phone and preoccupied with thoughts about her partner Sam, and she didn't even hear it. And then he went and grabbed the little vial thing and took the drops and died after much convulsing and shaking. And I noticed she heard it. You know, he said, "Do you mind if I go again?" She heard it in her mind when she was in the confinement. And then the next thing that she heard was her telling her brother, "You want to go again?"
Oh my God.
And he did not, he was like, no. He did not want to go again. And I thought that was quite fascinating, that when she was in that confinement, when she really could just watch her thoughts, she could see both of those thoughts. One, her partner Danny said, "You mind if I go again?" And her saying to her brother, "Do you want to go again?" And it's this go again thing. You can feel the linear aspect to it. It's this go again. That's like two words that are put together in a thought. And I find that's really the point of surrender, where Jesus calls it, "Let all things be exactly as they are." Or he says, "All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment." And that's really the prayer of our heart, is to just go into that point of complete acceptance, because the Holy Spirit accepts and the ego analyzes, and in the end it's just a moment of surrender and acceptance. So I think that's really like the prayer that you're calling for. The prayer of your heart is really just the prayer of, Holy Spirit, Jesus, just show me what to accept. Guide me, lead me, show me what to accept. Because our code, the code that we bought into is what's next. It's the same in education. It's the same in our linear human life. What's next? What's next? And the real prayer is I remember Bill Thetford was having some struggles during those 7 years that he was helping Helen take down the course. And Jesus knew that he was struggling. And so Jesus said to Helen, here's a prayer for Bill. And the prayer was, here I am, Lord. And you can hear it right there in the prayer, how here I am, Lord, differs from what's next. You can hear the presence. You can hear the acceptance. Here I am, Lord. So that stays with me. It's next time you wake up in the morning and you don't feel well, or the next time you have a thought of your mother with dementia or seeming to lose her memory, or whatever the time temptation seems to be, you can come back to something very soft and very gentle that you can really relax into, which something like, here I am, Lord. 4 words that Jesus gave to Bill, but they're really for all of us. They're really for all of us. Yeah. Thank you, Esther.
Okay, we have Diana there. I'll just unmute you.
All right, David, there you are. Hello. Oh my gosh, this movie. I took like 7 pages of notes. I couldn't stop writing. I just wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And I mean, I've never written that much on one of our movie gatherings, and there's so much obviously that I could talk about. But one thing that I want to share with everyone is at the very end of the movie, what I noticed that Ren did, because she had this experience the first time in the prison, the box. The second time she was like, okay, I know how to get out of this. I know how to get out of this. I know what to do. I know what to do. Immediately there was this sense of a celestial speed up. It was like, oh, wow, that is so the Course in Miracles. Oh my God. Okay. Cause she just was in and out, boom, like so fast. Whereas the first time it was day after day after day, seemingly. And then I also noticed that she was so identified, and she was a scientist, and I'm stereotyping here, but she was so identified with the doer that she just was headstrong. Like she just, like a bull in a china shop, every situation that she seemed to go into, it's like she just went into it with self-will, with a little s. Like it was just, there was no sense of connection vertically. And toward the end, when there was, you could see when she started to soften up, you could see where she started to surrender, where she started to accept, like with her brother, and the celestial speed up in the box the second time. So you could see where Spirit was working on her, and she moved from the position of the doer, the hard and the restricted and the confined sense, to this more expansive place as toward the end of the movie. And I loved being able to see that. That felt really good to be able to watch that and to be aware of that. So that's what I wanted to share. Mainly the celestial speed up. That was awesome. I mean, that's what we're doing in co-living. This is celestial speed up.
Yes.
That's it right there. And there's a trailer 2 blocks away. It says fast track. And every time I walk by it, I'm like, yep, I'm on the fast track. That's right. So it's great. I love it. This is beautiful. And it's all about waking up, David. And it's all about giving. That's what Spirit is. It's about giving. So thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Thank you. You're like a poster child for the whole community co-living. Fast track. You're just into it, and that you saw that in that movie. It says volumes. Yeah. So it's beautiful because there is a part toward the later part of the text of the Course where Jesus describes salvation. It's interesting when he goes after something like that. I do not know the thing I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going, or how to look upon myself or the world. It sounds like a total surrender of letting go of any sense of identity or goals related to an identity. So thank you for your trust and noticing that speed up. She did go through, second time through, she went through that lickety split. She was, her mind was in a different direction. Yeah. Thank you. It's beautiful.
Okay. Well, we have Helena there. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
I just want to say thank you for, I'm so grateful to be here. And this was a great movie. It's so funny. I was just looking at movies on MWGE yesterday, and this one came up because, what was I looking at? Being the dreamer of the dream, noticing that. And anyway, so it was cool that it came up today. And yeah, I love the quick reminder. Like, I just feel how helpful it is to hear the same message in different ways. Sometimes it just helps. And the code, it's like a quick reminder. I feel like it's going to stay with me when I'm tempted to blame, or I'm tempted to attack, and tempted to judge, and tempted to believe that, I'm guilty or wrong, or there's right and wrong and all that, because it plays out, and it's the code. No, I can just use that as a quick reminder. It's code, and it's just another forgiveness opportunity. And I can certainly identify with that sense of responsibility like she had for her brother and fixing it, like having to fix it. I think I've carried that burden with the kids. It's like all the misbehavior and all the stuff that kids do. It's like I take it on as I'm the model. It's my fault. I've done this and I have to fix it. And it's this heavy responsibility I carry. And just remembering that I cannot sin, like you reminding me that I cannot sin. It's like all I want to see is innocence, my innocence, their innocence, everybody's innocence. It's like the deep prayer of my heart now. It's like, so remembering that it's code, it's coded for, showing me the guilt. And then it's just choosing once again that my innocence and their innocence. And so I feel like this movie was a fast track, and just that recognition of it's just a code. And like I love what was just brought up, that she's done this before. We have forgiven, and we can do it again. Like it's like you said, we made it up. And it was just so helpful. So I just feel so grateful for the reminder and the help that it's saturating me. Just feel, thank you.
Thank you, Helena. Yeah, I think one of the most impactful memories I have in movies is I remember the first time I went into the theater to see The Matrix. And it starts off with a dark screen, and it's like it's the code. It's the green code that's streaming down, just these numbers. And then I remember Trinity saying Morpheus, or maybe it was Cypher, Morpheus believes he is the one. What do you think? He was talking to Trinity, but that movie was such an iconic, epic movie. And I thought tonight, yeah, that's it. That's the code. When we can just see all the green numbers streaming down. There's also that transcendence scene too in the Matrix when Morpheus has prophesied, Neo says, so you're saying I'm going to be able to dodge bullets? And Morpheus says, no. I'm saying that when you realize this, you won't have to. And then that's the scene when the agents fire the bullets, and he just puts his hand up, and then there it is, code green again. That's the scene in where the code is apparent, where it's beyond the perceptions of bullets and bodies, and it's just all code. And then the music rises up, almost like an angelic chorus rises up as the whole scene turns to code. So that's a key word. That's like our buzzword now. You've got a buzzword as you go through the day. Your 3 boys, the food starts flying in the kitchen, it flies on mom's nose. Shh! You won't have to dodge food, right? I see the code, and that's it. You are the one, and the angels rejoice. Yeah. It's good. We need those kind of little buzzwords and keywords, just as reminders to just keep the presence there. Yeah. So thank you. That's good. The code word is code.
Okay, well, we have Christopher there at the monastery. You can unmute.
And I wanted to contribute from what you said, David, about what's now and what's next. The what's now is love for me, and what's next is a call for love. And so what I'm receiving now is that I can pull myself off the screen, off the code, by realizing if I do see a call for love on the screen, that's actually for me to realize how am I stepping into the code and seeing that person, seeing a personality person rather than who they truly are. That's my call for love. And that's as far as I've gotten, but that's really helpful. So I don't need to be looking and judging people. Oh, you have a call for love and you have a call for love. No, it's me. The way I see you is my call for love. And I want to come back into what's now, not what's next. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Christopher. We see you're wearing your heart right out in front there, and your smiling face. You're going for it. Beautiful.
Yeah. This is a gift from one of our co-living, from Astrid. She gave it to all of us. It's our rebel heart. So we are giving up our rebel heart.
Okay. That's good. That's great. Thank you, Christopher. It's beautiful.
Okay, we've got Juliana there at Canis.
Hi, Juliana.
Hello, David. Thank you so much for this movie. This was super, super, super mega master blaster powerful. really enjoyed. It was amazing. And something very, very miracle is the fact that I have listened in the last 2-3 days many times the talk that you do related to level confusion. And it's pretty much a lot what you said today in this movie. So there's something I'm going through now, and I would like to expose for you and listen to what you have to share. Because, okay, so I wrote a couple things here to not forget. So, because we believe we have this other life, this similar life, it shows that we have a perception problem, as you said. And because we believe we are here, we could say that this is the reason for addictions, for example. I have heard you say that it's a level confusion problem if we think that we are responsible for anything related to the body. So, okay, the reason I'm talking about this is I can see clearly that I still have some resistance to totally give up of some little addictions I have. For example, I smoke 3 cigarettes per day, more or less. And also, as you know, I am working few days per week. And there are opportunities, invitations that my co-workers offer me a drink. And I am not being able to say no all the times. Once a while, let's say once a week, I feel like, okay, why not? So my question is really like, okay, I want to really give everything for spirit. I am with this call in my heart. Even the hard times that I have here, I have no doubts I want to stay here. But I do see that this can be something working against me. This is why I am exposing this. And so, for example, as I said, in the videos that related to level confusion, you say, ideally, no, the only option is to not feel responsible for this, but give everything in Jesus' Holy Spirit hands, and they are going to work out this. So I am wondering if there is any part, any way that Juliana's willpower should be acting on these 2 things that I mentioned. Yeah, or the way that I like to work, I understand to work is like when I allow the feelings, whatever what happened is going on, go through me with Jesus or Holy Spirit lights in my mind, I am able to open up my heart and allow everything pass through. And I feel that with them in my mind, this is an action of giving, handing over this to them. So, yeah, okay. So those are all my thoughts, and I want to know yours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think it's good to remember that that the Holy Spirit offers us love and nurturing and support, and realizes that as we begin to open up to receive it, that there will be times of resistance. There will be times of seeming struggle or a challenge where the mind's like, no, I don't want to surrender. No, I don't want to surrender. I want the cigarette. I don't want to surrender. I want the cigarette. And a part in the course that helped me was when I read that something to the effect of the Holy Spirit will not take from you the little that you hold. Something about that, I just thought, well, that's so cool. The Holy Spirit will not take from you. In other words, it is like a letting go and a surrendering, but it has to just come when it comes. It has to come through a miracle. It can't be this doer, this individual that has to be stoic. You know, this is how it works sometimes. We think, okay, Juliana, okay, you're going to get offered that drink. You're going to, here it comes, you know, and we, you know, it puts too much pressure because it still seems as if there's a Juliana that has to do something or be strong or whatever, however you want to put it. And that's really not the case. I find the Holy Spirit is so soft and so gentle. It's like this super soft and gentle presence. And I always tell that part too, where I was going through some kind of struggle, and I remember just praying and opening the Course up, and read the section, the very line that said, "When you find resistance is high and dedication is weak, you are not ready. Do not fight yourself." And I closed the book. I said, thanks. And I went off and did whatever I was going to do. But to me, I just see how playful and lighthearted and soft the Holy Spirit is. So it's part of the practice, too, at coming more into our joy, I think, more into our inspiration, living from our heart, living from our inspiration, and then taking our eyes of judgment away. Because I've been talking to a friend this week, and anytime she's been praying for a healing, and anytime a symptom appears or a pain appears, she takes it so hard, almost like she's lost, and then it caves in. Oh, I'm not getting this. No, I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh, I'm weak. And then the ego just jumps right in the crack and says, yes, and you're going to die. You're going to die. You know, it goes into little crack, you know, and then it just comes in like it's a death wish, you know, it's just vicious. And then, you know, we'll talk and she'll just say, oh, I feel bad because, and I say, that's you. I just keep saying you have to really be easy with yourself, really super gentle here, because it's going to be through inspiration that we surrender. It has to come through inspiration. It's not going to become through this kind of stoic battle, even though, of course, it gets portrayed that way in movies. I remember watching this movie, Little Buddha, and there's Siddhartha sitting under the Bodhi tree, and then all these temptations come one after the next, and then finally there's all these warriors throwing these flaming spears at Siddhartha as he's under, and he finally just relaxes, and instead of flaming spears, they get closer. They turn into like these beautiful tree blossoms, like little blossoms coming down. It was a beautiful scene of the retranslation. It wasn't like Christopher was talking about. It's calls for love, flaming spears, and then just soft little petals dropping down in front of Siddhartha. And then it's the Buddha. You know, the Buddha is there. And so, yeah, that's my words for you is just be very, very gentle with yourself, and every day just go into what inspires you, like you're doing with the readings in Portuguese and the things, and it's just your heart's opening and blessing and sharing. And that's how we come to that surrender point, through our function, through our heart, you know, that way. So you're doing great. And don't make it into a big deal, because that's just what the ego wants. It's trying to get you, wants you to grab onto something. So thank you. Beautiful. Sweet.
Okay, well, you have a hand up there from Stephen. You can unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. David, this was fascinating from the beginning, because when you started talking, I was just thinking, well, I was just having these thoughts today. And so here you are echoing them. And the thoughts that floated in today for me was, I wrote it down. And the thought was that forgiving others takes a while. Takes a while to release the projection and to get a feel for that in this dreaming experience. And then I wrote down, and forgiving yourself takes a little bit more of a while. In other words, to start to release this character, this idea of myself as a character in this experience. So when you were talking about this and opening up that movie, I thought, oh man, I was just having these thoughts floated into my mind coincidentally, and I really like that. And one of the things I heard in the movie, and you mentioned it, you paused the movie, and you were sharing about the facsimile of an experience that you've never had sounds isolating. And I didn't hear that when I was listening to the movie, but I listened to you. But what I wrote down was right before that. And right before that, the statement was something to the effect of users can become trapped by the fantasy and become removed from reality altogether. And I thought, wow, yeah, that's the truth, this fantasy idea. And I thought, I have such a fantastic mind. I'm always being trapped in the fantasy. And then that's that experience of just the perpetuation of that code, the fear code. And here's another scenario, and here's another fantasy, and just how it wants to loop back around and say, well, try it again, and hold on to this. And realizing that quote, time in that sense, it feels, this movie, parts of it felt very claustrophobic. The trap, the time, the room. And boy, I just equated that claustrophobia to the fear I experience, and just coming up against that wall where there is no exit. So I loved how this movie depicted that fear, the panic, the frustration, the anger that's just lurking there. And then her speed up, as was described as well, of saying, wait a minute, I've been here before, I know how to do this. It's just a code. It's just a code. And then applying the code, the source code, and forgiveness, release everything, ask for help. And so that was just all flowing in to see that contrast. And then I remembered a gift a friend of mine gave me, and it was a fun gift because he and I were talking about that little switch, that quantum switch, just right there, wherever you want to put it. It could be on your forehead, at your heart, wherever you want to think about it, just switch into that. Choose again, get vertical, whatever we want to do. And he gave me this light switch. I don't know if you could see that, but it's from Arizona State. I live in Arizona. The symbol for the Sun Devils are the trident. And of course, then there's Sparky, which is their mascot. And it's just a light switch. It's a fun little thing. But I thought, well, how appropriate. And he saw it out there, and he brought it. He gave it to me. And he said, I saw it. He goes, I had to give it to you because it was really that depiction of that, of just flip the switch, just flip that switch, So just got to go to the source code and just flip the switch, and then it's like light and it's love and it's fantastic. And this is all we have to do is flip that switch, source code or fear code. And I was just researching, just because I thought, well, this is too much fun. So I was researching the trident, and every time I go look something up, the trident, that's Poseidon, and the trident really is from the Greek letter PSEI, which is Poseidon, and what it means is divine essence. And I thought, well, that's even better. And then I kept looking at, well, what's the pitchfork? What's the devil's pitchfork? And that's like an illusory type of object, a false trident. It's an optical illusion, and it's a false trident. I think it's called a blavet or something. I don't know about these things, but I love how Holy Spirit just lets me go wander off into, research and find these gems. But for me, I just thought, what a helpful reminder. In here, we've done this before, and just flip the switch, man. And then, so anyway, I just wanted to share that. This was fun, and there were those claustrophobic type moments I have to acknowledge, and I think I understand what that is. That's just the no exit. That's the insistence on trying to find happiness at the level of the dream, and then knowing that you're stuck. And trapped in time, so to speak. But anyway, thank you. That was fun.
That's great. Thank you, Stephen. This is so fantastic, these sharings, because I'm sitting here, and I mean, I enjoy every time we do these gatherings because I see the lead up is Lilo giving the instructions, but now I just see Helena coming on, and saying, remember the code, and you going flip, and that's all we really need at the beginning. People know how to use Zoom. They just need to see you flashing that bright flip 2 or 3 times to remember what the movie's about. There it is. That's it. That's fantastic. It's getting simpler and simpler. We don't need instructions. We just need to remember to flip the switch.
I was going to say add 2 meatballs and some music from last week. So we need ratatouille, a meatball dish, and the like.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's getting simple.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I do remember I watched Aquaman, and the trident was a powerful symbol in that. So I didn't know the thing about the devil's pitchfork and the false trident, but there it is again, the symbol of divinity and the light switch and everything. It's so beautiful. It's just raining down on us, all these beautiful symbols. Thank you, Stephen. Okay.
We've got Seema.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. Actually, I thought that those scenes were in the cell in the solitary confinement made me think of the movie Revolver when he's in the elevator and just the intensity. And I really could relate to when we're she's facing this really extreme situation. And, when you face that in life, like when you really have to go in and it doesn't feel soft and gentle, it feels really, really hard. And she went through all of that, facing all the emotions. But even in her hypotheticals, there was some healing because she was joining with other mighty companions, like even, Danny and the other girl. And then she hugs her father and she goes to her father's house and she tells Danny, I'm sorry. Whereas before she had been totally in isolation. So it was interesting to me that even in the hypotheticals, there was some healing. And that finally, when she does remember, she and her father are finally able to join in the pain they're avoiding, like she's avoiding it and he's on one end and she's on, at the first scene, she's all the way at the top of the auditorium and he's over there. And I didn't even know that was her father. I thought that was just some random doctor, there was so it was kind of interesting, how we experienced that, even in that, what could seem like, oh, you're whatever, there's something is there that's guiding that. And that eventually, she does, even in the hypotheticals, it's in the beginning, it was all dark, but some of the hypotheticals, there was more light. You could just see that there was more scenes of light. So I thought that was a real, a great portrayal of what happens in the mind and then the joining with the mighty companions to kind of, finish this. So I thought that was really, really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Seema. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Those are great retranslations. We were hearing earlier about how the symbols can be used in a way to point us in the right direction, and that's it. Away from the intensity and more towards the road gets easier here. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
No more hands, David.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. That was a great Mind Watcher movie. Explosively helpful. So that's sometimes what we need. That's like our kick. We got our kick tonight. But also with that, we can realize that we can just ease into it and melt into it, and that's the way that we go. We don't have to think of it so much as fighting the good fight anymore, but just more of the melting in, because it's really a retranslation of our perception. So the code gets completely reordered and retranslated in our mind. And it helps us because sometimes we have had symbols where we have to go out and fight for the truth, and we don't really have to fight it. We just have to keep the faith, and keep moving towards that easy, gentle melting in. And yeah, it's always there for us. So thank you for being with us, and thanks for the poll and the voting on the themes. I think this time Kenneth opened it up so there was multiple votes. So it was a new a new ballot. This is what we came up with, Other Life, for our first new ballot with all the stacks of votes. So those were really good topics, and I have to admit, when I first saw them, I thought, okay, I'll have to pray all afternoon to see how we can incorporate those three, but we did it. As usual, we always find a way. So thank you. God bless you, and thank you for joining, and we'll keep the prayer of our hearts wide open. Thank you.